people, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Raven's Voice Buyout Edition. This is Zealous
Yeah,
here.
you're funny.
Zealous here, co-hosting with Tearsin.
Hey, here we are. At least one more week.
Before the buyout. Technically, if we want to get really technical about it, the buyout we're talking about is not supposed to, the full deal is not supposed to close until May 21st.
May 21st is when we'll be given a lot of garbage. Oh, we'll see. We'll see. Actually, let's get the plugs out of the way. Let's get it out of
Yeah,
the way.
yeah.
ArmorCoreLegacy.com, the Ravens, or I'm sorry, not the. Yeah, no.
You're good.
The Ravens. You suck. The RavensVoice.com, RavensVoiceACL@gmail.com. Okay, so yeah, like the title of it said for this week, From Software has an imminent buyout.
Yep. Specifically, that's the known mainly I guess as a manga giant, but it's a lot of different media and multimedia tied under their umbrella. The Kadokawa
It
group.
just sounds way too freaking Japanese for me. It's all
But
right.
yeah, to tell you what, it's nothing new. I mean, this is a group that was established in 1945. It wasn't they didn't have their immediate sales then, or fully kick everything off. But yeah, I mean, the group has been around a really long time. I think their first publishing was around 1949 or so in their first print. But this is something interesting. Usually when we hear about mergers like this, okay, it's just about like another studio, like gaming specific studio acquiring another. But here you have it. Kadokawa has its hands in anime, manga to a huge extent. And obviously all the things that come along with those franchises, and then gaming as well. That happens to be another thing that's tied in the umbrella. So it's here comes From Software. Having the majority of their shares bought into this essential giant.
Eighty
This
percent.
large group. 80%.
This is a takeover. That's not make it anything else that it's not. It's there's a lot of speculation is going to happen, but this is nothing less than a takeover. 80% of the buys, or 80% of the shares of From Software bought and out from the company that previously owned it to Kauda Kawi or whatever it is.
Kurosawa.
I wish.
I'm just kidding. I
No,
do too.
this is a full forward takeover of From Software.
Yeah. Another neat thing here. We were talking a little bit about this beforehand. Even though From will obviously have different overhead now. There have been no reports of the design teams exploding yet, and I think that's largely from a lot of the perspective I'm looking at it here. This week, different forums. I think ACU and over at ACL specifically, there were threads immediately about this. I have not looked at the Raven Republic discussion, if there is one. It's my fault. I missed that. If anyone has notes, feel free to talk about that. But yeah, it's kind of the angle I'm looking at here. That essentially this along with part of the takeover, which you have, they're not broken in terms of the Dark Souls group or the Armored Core group. This isn't ex-employees were fired, or these managers they're still intact. And Nishi and a few others even mentioned we don't understand how this affects Armored Core really at all, because this is just a buyout and a takeover. This is just personal perspective for me, but I think to a degree, indeed, right now, like immediately as of this hour, it doesn't, I don't think, have a huge impact on the series. Now, what it's going to mean going forward, and actually publishing AC, the contract with Namco Bandai as well, and different things that are going on there, that's really going to be something to look at, and what's going to be expected of AC in the future. But hey, they're still there. It's the same people as far as we know, and I think at least if some of them are intact and still want to design AC, you have something there. So.
Yeah, I don't feel the same way. We've obviously
Yeah.
talked about this. I think that's it, folks. I think Armored Core, with any resemblance of what it used to be, of what it is now, if you don't like Gen 5, I think this is the closest we're ever going to see to what we used to love with Gen 3 or whatever. I think this is it. I think Armored Core, if it still exists, past this point. If there is further development, I guess let me be more specific. It will be of a very anime-ish and watered down version that will make us want to vomit in our mouth.
Do you feel that we're going to see
I
GNLs mounted with anime girls, or
this I no, I think this is it. I think if you're a company and you're looking at what's happening, I don't, okay, there are some previous ties from the past with this company and in Armored Core, very long in the past, in its early days. There can be connection made from that. I think that's irrelevant at this point.
Mhm.
I think if you're a company and you're looking at sales, you're looking at numbers, and you're looking at Armored Core, and you're looking at what it was, and what it was a long time ago at this point, especially when it comes to games. But you look at what it's been for the last few years, for the last gen. I think you cut ties. I think you say, look, it had a good run, but look at what it's doing. Look at what it's been doing here. Look at
Mhm.
Verdict Day.
Mhm.
Ironic with the name, because I'm sure Verdict Day will be looked at a lot as to why Armored Core will not continue.
you
How,
know,
how do you not cut ties? Tell me, Zils, if you're them and you just bought From Software, how do you not cut ties with Armored Core at this point?
I think a way that you don't is the corner of the market that Armored Core holds. Okay, here, we've wanted this for years. Give us a mech game that trumps AC in terms of its depth, its customization, everything. Nothing's quite done it. We've seen Front Mission. Oh, okay, RPG elements, kind of action esque, and a few things like that mixed. Okay, it's fine. It's in its corner. There's Mech Warrior. That's its own vein. Slower paced combat anyway. Nowhere near the level of customization you have in Armored Core. And then you start jumping into more anime-esque kind of wild things like Zone of the Enders and things like that. High-paced action. I guess I could lump AC4 in with that too. Like, let's go.
Lollipop
That's
Chainsaws, Ellis.
Lollipop Chainsaw, right?
Lollipop Chainsaw. Come,
But
come on. That's this company. They did that.
it
That's
is
that's their vision of gaming.
it is. However, even though they're going to be like the umbrella group with the overhead and everything like that. And Front's team is still intact. I point to the corner of the market AC occupies. There are very few mech titles even there on the map in the first place. Now, I
That's
think
part of the problem.
yes, it's part of the problem, but I think someone smart will take that and look at that and say, okay, look, how can that be? How can that be leveraged, or how can you really help push this? Obviously, it's not to reinvent this and draw smileys and lollipop chainsaws all over it to try to mix it
Lollipop Chainsaw.
with something modern, but it's taking that brand, I think, in a creative way, and to still be willing to make use of that. Use it because you know what? It's honestly something that has nowhere near the level of fierce competition. Let's say a shooter would. You want to push a new shooter out there these days? Okay, well, there's COD and there's Halo, and everything else in between to compete against, and your action adventure games. There's not a whole lot of there's not too much wiggle room in terms of where someone new to the game or new to the competition comes in. But Mecha, oh for goodness sake, there's so little on that. But I don't think that has to be a bane. I think
Well,
that's
but you
potential.
say that, and then you have a company recently with Xbox, with Microsoft, who comes out with Titanfall,
Yeah.
and they make a push with some serious mecha elements, and it bombs.
Ironically, if you got to look at the content of Titanfall too, the funny part, Titanfall has basically zero campaign. It's literally multiplayer.
I don't know if I
Multiplayer.
agree with that. Do you? Wait, maybe we misunderstood. I thought you said media campaign.
Oh no. Not media campaign. I mean, in terms of campaign, as in you're playing through like
Oh,
developing
okay.
mission scenarios, things like that.
I'm
Like
gonna say because that shit got pushed down my throat
no,
watching
oh no,
gameplay.
it did. It got forced. I mean, commercials and everything. We all saw that, right? But
Okay,
no, yeah. I mean, in terms of like the content, like its skeletal structure. I look at Titanfall and it's that multiplayer model that's there. Like, yay, and it's a semi shooter, and then some of the mech elements, and it's kind of just there. Um, that doesn't necessarily push, I think, the depth lines much at all. Even for such a pushed AAA game, 9.5, 9.9, 9.8, everywhere. You know, there's still some very thin elements to be said for. So
here's what really worries me about this. This is why I think this is done. That's why I think Armored Core, as we know it, is done. You know, I what the kind of games that have always interested me, and this goes way back. I mean, this goes back before video games for me. This goes back to the original Dungeons and Dragons.
Right.
Yeah, I'm talking about the dice and the paper character sheets and the whole thing. All right, being able, this is one of the big draws for me with Armored Core, and that is detail, and that is putting in your own detail, filling in the gaps yourself, customization. All right, not just to an aesthetic level, but to to the point of your decisions with your character or whatever, and in this case your robot, they determine the outcome. Obviously, the player behind it matters as well, decision making, but you're building, you're deciding what you're putting out there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This had its heyday, and at one point, I mean, this is a lot of what PC games were. This is what they tried to be. This is what a lot, I mean, Armored Core was at its height trying to do this, but as time has gone on, as games got more expensive, as sales became more and more important, not to say that they ever weren't on the top of the list, but the amount of space on the top of the list that they take, it becomes more and more critical.
Right.
Games like this have fallen to the wayside. World of Warcraft was a perfect example of this. While not always the most innovative when it came to character customization and such, it was definitely there. This was an MMO. It was an MMO RPG. For a while there, it was they'd call them, oh,
Mm-hmm.
it's an
Mm-hmm.
online game and stuff like that, and then it became MMORPG, and then it just became MMO. Then it's just RPG role playing game got put aside, and you rarely
Mm-hmm.
even hear that anymore. You rarely even hear that term at all anymore. Am I wrong?
No, I mean
No.
there's some people that like to localize it as an MMORPG, but there's no point I think in the shorthand, in
And
the saying that.
you're talking about sales, and when it comes to sales, you have to be able to create a game that people will want to play. And in order to do that, you have to create a game that people can just pick up and start playing. Customization is fun now, and this doesn't really matter, because if it matters, people who can't just pick up and play the game are gonna suck. And this is exactly, and this isn't the first time that Armored Core has delved into this. AC4 was littered with this stuff. They tried to balance it. They tried to make a, well, they can just come in and play. Customization won't matter so much, but for those who it does matter for, they can still do their thing. And I mean, just from the little bit of time I spent with Gen 4, that was obvious. I mean, I knew it beforehand, but it was clearly obvious that they were trying to walk a line that you can't walk. You can't have both. You,
You
you
know,
can't. And gaming companies have realized this.
yeah. The instant gratification element as opposed to investment. It's funny. I think if you just take one browse to the Diablo 3 forums these days, for example, it's I think that's another funny one. There's a big complaint, for example, right now about ladder only items. Okay, having to re-roll a character just to play through ladder season to get special items you can eventually bring back into non-ladder and to use for your characters there. A lack of wanting to really invest the time to do it. It's this idea that, well, I should be able to have access to what everybody else does as I pick this up. There
Right.
has to be a little, and um, I think anyone who's ever really played RPGs, especially like the older, I mean, I obviously see flaws with that. I know myself. Um, I have no problem doing this. In fact, I see that's part of it. I don't feel that I should have everything. Someone who's sat here and actually put some time and builds in to get their uniques and level a bit. I'm not going to get what you got overnight. And I'm fine with that. But the thing is, a lot of people aren't, and that accessibility, being able to come in and rock out and be the man and all that stuff right off the start,
Right.
uh, that's a difficult line companies walk. I think they've caved. There have been a lot of caving, and there's been a lot of
I don't think it's
concessions.
caving, man. I don't blame them for it. I mean, and ultimately, I will not blame Kamikaze here for ditching Armored Core or turning it into whatever it's going to be turned into. It's what you have to do. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of companies that try to pick up the mantle that these previous companies ran with. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, my decision for quitting World of Warcraft after playing for 7 years, my decision was twofold. one, I had been playing the damn thing for 7 years.
Right,
But
right.
secondly, after being with it for 7 years and looking at what they were going to do with the new expansion that was going to come out, the current one, um, Mists of Pandaria, I think it was Pandaland, as I had always called it.
Right.
Um, they were just changing the game so much. They were changing it too much. They had been doing that little by little. They tried to walk the line. Okay, well, here's your detail. Here's your depth here for the players. Well, at the same time, here's where other players can just come in and just play and not spend time on stats and skill sets and building their character up the skill tree and such. And no, it didn't work. It doesn't work. And eventually it did have to
Mm,
cave. And eventually, your specialization, your spec for your character was absolutely
yeah.
irrelevant, and literally interchangeable at the moment. And
Right.
it's just like, wow, this is. I mean, this is. And while I thoroughly enjoyed my time in WoW, I watched the degradation of what I loved about games like that, which was fine, but it got to the point where I was like, all right, this is just too far from what I enjoyed about this. I mean, are there other aspects? Yes, but that customization part of it, it's gone, and
Yeah.
that's dude. Why would a company that now owns From Software take the risk that they know will not work?
Hmm. Part of it too comes down to looking at, I think, what Kadokawa has published and what they've actually developed. You
Lollipop
know,
Chainsaw.
published. That was published, not developed by them. You had Lollipop Chainsaw, some stuff I've never even played or heard of, dude. Like Rodea the Sky Soldier and like Sorceress Stabber Orphan. I have no idea what that is. Those were also published titles by them. But then I look at the develop side, what they've actually closely worked with. Um, you're an RPG fan. Do you remember Lunar at all? Lunar Silver Story?
I mean, I know the name, but I never played it.
PS1. Lunar Silver Story Complete and Lunar 2 Eternal Blue. I recognize those off the bat, and then there are a few others that I've never seen. Kantai Collection, Demon Gate, Kantai Collection. That rings a bell, but something to do with battleships. I thought Battleship Maiden, something weird. Um, but at large, besides those big two RPGs I see sitting there at the top, most of those are kind of unknowns for me to what they developed, and I'm not going to paint a rosy picture and say it's the best thing ever and all the perfect decisions can be made. No, but and, again, they're going to have obviously pull and like decisions with their overhead and things like that. But um, I don't think that means we're going to see cheerleaders on our ACs yet, or running around with pom poms or the
I
heads of
don't care
gear
if that's an
singing
emblem or
deceased
decal. In
boyfriend.
fact, I would prefer to see that emblem or decal on my kick-ass, awesome, customized armored core.
Exactly. So some of these, and again, I hadn't played, and I kind of wish I looked into a little more before we actually started talking. Like, I'm going through some other names here: Earthseeker and Natural Doctrine. I don't know a whole lot about those either. I think Natural Doctrine was kind of like I think some kind of like RPG. I swear that's recent, or some kind of tactical RPG for like PS4 going into Vita. So it's current stuff. And from what I've seen with Lunar, that's not really a bad mark in my book. Lunar is pretty fun. I played Lunar 2 way back when, but I don't know.
I think Margarine's got it here. He said that at one time ago, a long time ago, this company was actually associated, which was at one point the publisher for Armored Core. But we're talking PS1 days. We're talking AC1 and Formula, or not Formula, AC1 and oh my God, my
Um,
brain. What was Project Phantasma?
Project Phantasma.
Yeah, we're talking
Well,
15, 14 years ago.
Well, as a loose subsidiary group, and that's the funny thing to keep in mind. One thing, if you look through Kadokawa's history, the others associated with him, it was just kind of fun to connect some dots on. We're talking about ASC2 Entertainment. You remember them as an earlier publisher for the early games in the Armored Core series. There was a U.S. branch for that as well. Yeah, I mean, the whole publishing situation with their our older AC publishers, that is ASC2, The U.S. branch we later turned into Age Tech, like you were saying.
Yeah,
Um,
and we all know how great they were.
I think, as you aptly put it,
Where's that online play for Nexus?
on Kai, on excellent Kai. She
It's
really,
on Kai. Somebody else had to solve their problems and fix their mistakes.
boy, but yeah, there were things that were definitely a time and a time ago, and it's a lot of this is really, I think, when it comes down to the publishing situation where things were, um, what a company will decide to do with the brand ultimately, and how even the creative team that's still there, the original team that worked on things, Mister, especially Natashi Zine, he's not gone anywhere yet. Um, how will they want to leverage or promote said brand, or let that drop? Um, I think if a group, and again, that's speculation, but I think if
Well,
they're
no, that
bold,
that is the question.
they're
That
just,
is that
yeah,
is the question.
it is,
How do you make money off of Armored Core?
yeah,
And so part of that question underneath that one is, can you continue to make money with Armored Core?
mm-hmm.
And there probably is. There's probably books, maybe some comics, maybe even an anime show. I don't know. I don't even know if I don't think you can pull that off anymore. I know at one time they were going to try to put one together and it fell apart. That was not the fault of that project though. That was the fault of the project. Ironically, the company that they went with fell apart and they didn't finish.
Right.
So um, bad decisions by companies all around here. Um, but I don't, with as expensive as it is to make games now.
Mm-hmm.
This is not like when we were kids, man. This is not like, I mean, Armored Core back then. Even equating into inflation, still just so much cheaper to make.
Yeah.
We talked about Diablo 3 there for a minute. The original
Mm-hmm.
Diablo, I think, was made by just a handful of people, like literally half a dozen people.
Yeah,
Where
it's. I mean, that didn't come from a lofty, AAA publishing group. In fact, they had an interview. Everybody remembers Jay Wilson's comment that got him a lot of heat on Facebook for the words he said against David Brevik. And yeah, it was Dave Brevik and his high school dream, and a couple.
Yeah,
It,
like,
it
the,
wasn't
the
huge.
classic one is Armored Core, or not Armored
Right.
Core, Mortal Kombat, made by four guys,
Right. Right. Right.
and you can't do that anymore. You can't chip off a couple people off this development team and say, hey, go make the next Armored Core. You can't do it.
Well, I think that's part of the reason. Well, A, their team's still intact for AC, but B, that's where I think we look at indie market developing, and then actual, the official company development that we have. I think I missed PAX this year. I had a couple of buddies that went to PAX East. Heard it was awesome. You get a good split of the gaming world. You get to see the indie market, and you get to see a lot of what's happening in the standard traditional industry market model for gaming. Um, for the indie folks, though, you still do have that kind of sandbox esque, feel of especially just a couple of people or a small group starting off. Or heck, look at some of the things launched via Kickstarter. I think a good example, and well, this is probably a bad example. The creator of Mega Man, right? He's been screwed over how many times from being able to make a genuine sequel. He's wanted to, right? But he left Capcom, okay, for many reasons. And his Kickstarter, off of his fame, right? That he has from a very world-renowned character and whatnot. He got buttloads to work with and do, and he didn't take 80 people with him, doing like dev. He has some close people that he'd worked with, obviously, and at the same hand, it's not just a two-man team he's using. But I think that's where the distinction starts to be made these days. I think when you do have that model, those couple of guys want to start something out of the backwoods or the shed. Uh, there's your indie devs, and there's your indie team. And we've had some things in the traditional market that have helped enable that. Xbox Live Arcade is a great example. Games like Fez, right? And eventually those were made, and people could publish, and if worked to a great standard, hey, eventually sell that.
That game. You don't want to use Fez as an example. That game took years.
Yeah, okay, it's a bad one.
Took years.
It did, but it's still an indie game.
I love the indie market. I think it's great,
So
but it can't. Dude, the indie market can't make an Armored Core like a game. It can't even come close. The amount of time and development just to balance this game is
Yeah.
got to take a freaking team.
Yeah. So, um,
I mean, not if you want the depth that
yeah, yeah,
that it
yeah.
should have, that we're used to.
This is true.
That
This is true.
it can't happen. It can't. This is. I look. I don't. I hope I'm wrong. I really do. I hope that
Hmm.
May 21st comes around and they're gonna make. They're gonna obviously make some kind of announcement, another press release saying, yeah, we've acquired From Software and we're gonna continue their titles, um, which really consists of only two now, and it's as this is not From has created and dropped a lot of titles. Is Armored Core unique? Yes, Armored Core was basically the first, basically the big brother of all the other ones. But come on, this shit's in the tanker, and I mean it's it sucks. Verdict. I like Verdict Day. I like Gen 5, but this is not even walking in the shadow of Gen 3 and Gen 2.
It's drastically different. Well, hardcore fans will point to.
I just mean coming from a business end of things.
Oh, okay, like that.
This is nowhere near. I mean, I do. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope they announce that they're gonna make it. They're gonna make one more, and I hope it's not some Japanime crap. But it's probably good. This is no. I'm not gonna even set myself up to
That's fair.
be to be let down. I'm not even going to let that happen because there's very little telling me that this isn't exactly what's going to happen. That either they're not going to make another game or they're going to make it, and the stylized, watered down version of Armored Core is going to look like it was expansive and detailed and hard to wrap your brain around.
you know, I think if From at least had the courtesy to telegraph to us to death that Last Raven was going to be the final AC of the old style, of the older era, that, hey, this is a goodbye to Ravens as we know it. That they could at least have the courtesy to say this will be our goodbye to the series. Okay, if they're gearing, to make the last title with AC6 or whatever else that would be, there are unknowns on that board. That's why I don't. It's really funny, with the dev team. And like I said, if they were completely shot in the knees right now, I think that'd be a different story. There's a lot of questions on my side right now, and I'm not. I can't paint a rosy canvas, and I'm also not painting utter destruction just yet. I want to hear the announcement. I want to hear what's said when the official.
No, I'm coming off
and,
negative.
what
But
about
I
negative?
hope I'm not painting utter destruction either. I think I'm just painting. Look, this is, I'm reading the tea
Yeah, yeah,
leaves.
yeah, yeah.
This is what I think is going to happen.
Right. Right. Which is I mean, perfectly fair, man. I mean, but like I was saying, I think it comes down to that. If they were at least that courteous with LR, I would hope they are at least as courteous to say, hey, these will be the last set of titles, or this is going to be one of the last games, in the AC series. It's just hard to see From, especially celebrating 10 years of AC with LR, just say, oh yeah, no, we forgot about that. It doesn't exist. Dark Souls. Here you go. So.
Oh, so here, I think the final thing for me, I think what finally does it, is that you look at Gen 4 and you look at Gen 5. And you don't have to look at all of it, but you look at the highlights and the lowlights,
Yeah.
and you have to draw conclusions on decision making,
Yeah.
and then you have to look at the sales, and then you have to look at what you had said, which is that the team's still together.
Right.
And you put all that together, and you're a brand new owner of this, and you're like, why in the hell would I touch that even with a stick? And I'm not
Yeah.
trying to be mean or cruel. I'm being serious. Why?
Right.
Why would they?
Right.
Why would they bring? Why would they give the team that created Gen 4, that created White Glint, and then brought them back at the end of this game? They, we joke about it, and Gen 5 at the end of the day was a fucking double down on Gen 4,
Yeah.
and it, and what really sucks about that was that it was they knew what they had, and they knew what was going on, and they put that twist in at the end of Verdict Day, and they knew what that meant. It's like, hey, look, despite all the changes, despite the direction that we took into Gen 5, we're going to bring it right back home to you, to everything you
Right.
hated
Right.
in the last gen. And they knew it.
Yeah.
Why would you let that company
why
do more of that?
why would you rub that in? Here's one. I think here's one way. For the same reason that these were also people that were involved in Gen 3, potentially 2. I don't know the full 2 design team, so I'm not going to quote that. But these were also the ones involved in the older ACs, and this is such a cornered market. This is not a thing where there's competition, a buzz with everywhere. It's unique. It's very unique, and the question is, how do you want to use that? Uh, yeah, I
Uh,
mean, writings on the wall for sales, sure, and some of the atrocities that were committed with AC4, when that writings on the wall for that, sure, but it's still a unique brand.
well,
So
okay. So let me take it on the let me take it from the other perspective here, from the other side of things.
yeah,
Maybe this company coming in, maybe they'll look at things and they'll look at the history and they'll say, hey, look, they're. I was gonna say there's a big fan base here, but there's not. But there was at one point.
right,
Armored Core had huge sales.
right,
It's a known name. It's a brand name.
right.
Let's look at what they did back in Gen 2, where it sold the most. Where at one point it sold better in the US than in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at Gen 3 and why they created 5 different versions of Gen 3 and what worked for that. And maybe they'll say, look, there's an opportunity to make some money here. And I don't think they'd be wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know a single company at this point who buys from software, who buys a company and has this. Look, I'm sorry, Armored Core is a giant fucking turd right now. It is. It is. It look. And again, I'm talking from a business point of things. I,
No,
I
I,
enjoy. I
I
enjoy Gen 5, but
totally legit.
Verdict Day on the Xbox had 4-figure sales. 4-figure sales,
Yeah,
people.
yeah. Go check the charts. It's there.
I don't know, and
Yeah,
I hope I'm wrong. I really do, but I can't justify it if I had bought a company.
right.
But I got to be honest with you. At the same time, well, no, I was about to say why buy from software, but they have an established relationship, and Dark Souls is doing very well.
Yes.
So no, I can't say that. Um, I think if I were to take a guess on it, part of the reason why they were interested in From Software when it comes to Armored Core was the name,
Yeah.
and I think the name only. I think they will do other things with it. Maybe they'll come out with a watered down version of a game. There's just the sheer depth and the time and the effort that it takes to make a game like this, though. I can't imagine that another company, a new company, is going to want to do that. I just can't.
Right. Well, I think another key thing, to look at when you look at what a group's publish, their history, and what's actually going to be presented when they come out with products, when they finish things, is like, looking at the history, of how a series is run. Sure, I mean that plays in, and I totally agree. The financial perspective, where things have been, where things have actually sold, where that's actually set up at, right? But also, I think very, very, very closely tied in with that is not as much of I think, a rebranding, okay, or just to slap some anime on top of it and go for it from there, but how to make that unique corner of the market specifically shine. That's group to group, okay. Some, like you said, some doesn't make any sense to pick that up or to do so. Others very well see potency with that, and I mean, uh, Kadokawa's profits, I think, compared to From's profits as a smaller studio, I mean, obviously light and day, and that's also because From is not involved in manga and everything else. This has worked out bad in the past. I think groups that aren't totally focused on gaming, even they just have a specific branch for gaming, right? Um, it's just side projects and side things running, and there's more of a focus on the anime and the manga and the actual printed media than electronic media. So here, I mean, who knows, man? Uh, really, really, who knows? And it's I think time's going to tell us some things here. It'll be interesting
You
to
know,
tune into.
you've brought up the corner of the market a couple times, which
Yeah.
I believe you mean in general the mech part of the gaming market.
Hmm.
We've watched that kind
Yeah.
of dwindle to next to nothing. I seriously wonder if that market even exists.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, I believe under the genre, Armored Core is mech simulation.
Yeah.
Um, I don't even know if that exists anymore. I think
Yeah.
what you throw that in action now, or
Yeah,
maybe adventure.
I think action makes sense. Yeah.
Again, and I think it's a damn shame, but it's something that I came to terms with a few years ago.
Right,
That
right,
the days of when you can, when the bulk, if not the entire time you're gaming in one day, has to do with creating your AC or creating your guy or spending times with that, you know, changing things and going into your testing area and then seeing how that works. I think those days are done for the most part.
hmm
I just think they are, and I think this is I think for those who care about that, for those who love that, I think this is going to be one of the final nails in the coffin for these kind of games, for this kind of gaming, at least for a while. Things have ebbs and flows. Things go away and then they come back. But I think this is
right,
just not where gaming's at anymore.
right. Yeah,
I
and
my again my opinion. I hope I'm wrong. I hope, like I said, on May 21st, I hope they say that yeah we're gonna go with Armored Core 6 because they were very much gonna go with Armored Core 6. Namco was talking to us about that and wanting input from people. I mean, I heard it from their representative themselves. This was we weren't talking out of
oh
our
yeah,
ass that,
oh yeah, and
but go. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, no, no. That's another key thing to remember. A lot of the things that are happening and happening even behind the scenes, right? These decisions aren't just instantaneous, overnight. Like this whole merger, you can be guaranteed, there was no switch that was flipped, and they decided within 2 hours to do this. This has obviously been talked about, something that's been planned, far and ahead. And we've been looking for signs of AC6, for a while. Whether that's going to be at TGS, or we have to wait all the way till another E3. List goes on with that. Yeah, one thing to take here, I think, in context is, um, these decisions. A lot of these deals, they aren't made on a snap decision. One moment you'll decide, well, we want to merge, or we're gonna have these things are discussed beforehand and long term. And one thing I wished I got to look at beforehand, I didn't, or how much we actually have public access to, knowledge wise, I don't know. Are the stipulations of the contract between From and Namco, right? I mean, what the boundaries for AC are, like how long. I don't know the way that's set, but what we do know is that Namco, like you're saying, is willing to actually support the possibilities of of AC6 and things like that going forward. Um, so I guess at the end of the day, with all this and where publishers sit, when you look at what Katakawa has control of media-wise, and I think a lot of things are filtered through them. There's not as much content that I'm looking at. They've closely worked on and developed. There's a lot of big question marks here, but I 300% agree. Things sticking on the same lines of kind of direction we've been going, and if you continue to read out or double up on AC4 and everything else, you are going to reach that very very strange zenith in kind of
Well,
morph of an anime direction facing. I don't know.
and I don't think there's any. I don't think it's coincidence that
Right.
they released Dark Souls 2, and I think they just finished releasing it on PC, and
Right.
now this is announced.
Right.
I don't think there's a coincidence to that. I think that's intentional, and I think that's because they have every intention of running out their contract with Namco. Especially
Right.
with what's the name of this company again?
Katakawa.
Katakawa. They are primarily a publishing company. I
Yeah.
mean, they own a lot of other companies, but that's the whole thing. And in the release for this upcoming sale, that's a lot of what they talk about is the ability to outreach
Yeah.
and get their games and such worldwide. I think why even have another publisher at this point? So I don't think we're going to see anything from Software for a while. They're going to let this contract run out.
Yeah. And hey, speaking of publishers, one last question. I have no idea what's going to happen with this. Uh, Whether or not From are going to maintain their internal From records. Kota Hoshino and his band, they started publishing his works. For some of the not just the live concerts and things for Armored Core, despite how small a group that is in Japan, but still, he's had a couple of releases. AC Reprises. Those of you pick that up on iTunes. Um, there's a couple that we have now, and I don't know what's going to happen with the From records. I mean, I'm going to assume like that goes along with the territory of From Software. obviously. Like, I don't know how separate they've made that, but I'm gonna assume that's still gonna be a thing. I don't know, just something small to think about. So,
There it is. At the end of the day, guys, a lot of speculation on a lot of things that we've seen over the years. Of course, I think we said it at the beginning. We'll say it now. We are talking out of our butts. This is, we're looking at a lot of information, but we have no idea at all what's really going to happen here. And if there's one thing from it showing us is that they will surprise us.
yes, yes, indeed. So,
Fortunately,
final.
not a very good track record for good surprises. They will definitely throw you some curveballs from time to time. So,
Yeah.
who knows? Who knows? But this is our views on it. Obviously, Zealous has a much more optimistic view on it than I do. I'm not trying to be negative or pessimistic, but I realize how I'm coming across. So, I will definitely say that I'm on the darker side of things here. And either way,
Hmm.
that's if you pray, throw Armored Core in there a little bit every now and then, because I definitely think that the future of the franchise needs it.
Pray for Ravens and pray for answer.
Oh God, I really just stepped right into that. I did, didn't I? That sucks. That sucks.
You left too much of a gap there, man. It was perfect, flawless.
All right, but yeah, I think I don't think we can do much more with the topic at this
No,
point.
man. No, man. So hey, it'll what will be it'll be written. If you enjoy your pom poms and your ACs down the line, or if we'll see something different, time will tell. But till next time, you guys take it easy. Thank you for tuning in. You have a great weekend or week, wherever you're at, wherever you're listening. Peace out, and you have a good one.
See ya.